Hey everybody, it's Paul from Karis Pen Co. This video is going to be a little bit different than some videos that we've done in the past. We are launching a question and answer style video where I set up a form online that basically solicits questions from all of our customers, and then I pull the data and look through and find the good 15 to 20 questions. Sit down on camera, answer those questions so that you guys feel like, we are directly communicating with you on some of the different concerns you may have or questions about different processes. Whatever it is, we're going to try to get to them all as long as they're questions that we haven't answered in some other format. A couple of the reasons why we did this. So recently, Dan and I were on the BYOB Pen podcast, and that format was basically a Q&A format that their listeners and members had submitted the questions and got really interesting questions, and kind of felt like this is potentially something that we could do internally, and then host a video like this, a video series where we kind of dissect some of those questions that we frequently get, or questions that we never get, that we've never heard before, but that kind of we feel we should answer. So that was one reason why we did this, and it just kind of made sense for us to do that. I will link down below in this in the description to the episode of the BYOB podcast, Pen podcast. So if you're interested in listening to that, because I'm not going to really cover the questions that we answered in that podcast in this video, beware before you click on it. It is something like 85 minutes long, and the raw that's actually cut and edited down. The raw interview was over 120 minutes. If you've ever watched one of the videos with Dan and I, we do tend to be long-winded, and that was the case with that podcast. But we had a lot of fun with it. Really enjoyed sitting down with Evgeny and talking through just talking with him, and then kind of answering the questions that the members had submitted to us, and it just kind of sparked an idea that we would go ahead and do a Google form to solicit questions from the public. So if you're listening to this and you have a question at any point in time, you can click down below in the description, along with a link to the Pen podcast. I'm gonna actually put a link to the form where you can submit your own questions. Hopefully we can do several of these videos. I think I have something like 100 or 150 questions already, and today we're only going to get to maybe 15 to 20 of them, based off of how quickly I can go through these. And I've just pulled the first 20 that really jumped out, questions that we haven't answered in the past, to kind of get through, or that I felt were kind of that were easy to answer or were unique. I just basically chose the first 20 that really popped out at me. That's not to say that I won't go back and pick the other ones. We're really going to try to hit all of them, as long as they're not questions we get asked frequently and answer frequently in other areas. So without further ado, we'll get into the questions. And the first one is a relatively large question. It's a multifaceted question, and I'm going to read it straight as it is. Basically, it's in response to some of the pens that use the Schmidt SKM88 click mechanism. So if you're familiar with that, so it says, you mentioned the possibility of push button damage in some of your pens, in specific one I want to eventually pick up. Granted, I'm not a compulsive nervous clicker, but I'm still concerned about paying high dollar for a pen and then being stuck if it develops issues. Why can't you enforce a little more QC on the part of your supplier? So there's a couple different questions. Oh, there's actually one question in there, and then some statements. But I will go through and kind of dissect the whole issue with the SKM88. So the SKM88 is a click mechanism that was designed and manufactured by Schmidt writing instrument company that is in Germany. They are known for a lot of different things, mainly refills, and then mechanisms specific to pens and pencils. And as far as this click mechanism is concerned, when we got into making our first click pen, traditional click pen, there really wasn't, and there still really isn't, very many options as far as metal click mechanisms available. The majority of them that you saw on the market that you could purchase were plastic. Even in many of the other ones that Schmidt makes are plastic mechanisms. The SKM88 is an all metal. It's nickel plated brass with a stainless steel ball bearing. And how it functions, it's a silent click mechanism and a free moving click mechanism, so there's no like positive click or positive, you don't feel some kind of something locking into place when you use it. It's relatively unique in the design, where it was at the time. Several different companies. So we chose it at the time, to go back to, we chose it at the time because it was the only one available. We didn't have the means to make something similar at the time, and we really still, we would have to get specific, like very specific machines that we don't currently have, or outsource the manufacturing if we were to do something similar to this. And that would be much more cost prohibitive than buying an existing product that's made and it's mass produced. Which kind of ties into why we can't enforce some kind of QA guidelines on Schmidt. Schmidt is a much larger global company that serves the entire writing instrument community. So they are a massive brand, and while we have been in communication with them and asked them questions and attempted to do some work with them to improve the product, it's not necessary. It doesn't necessarily align with what they feel that product's quality. They don't feel the quality of that product warrants that type of necessitates that type of re-engineering. They feel that with proper use and care, the mechanism shouldn't and won't wear out, which is, it's truly the case. The one that we have several that we've used for 3 or 4 years that have not worn out. They can experience damage if they're dropped, or if they're clicked aggressively, or really if they're partially clicked. I've noticed that if when you're clicking it, you don't depress it firmly all the way down and you kind of like roll off of it, it will damage. It will not lock all the way in place, and the ball bearing will get caught somewhere else in the track that it goes in, and over time it will deform. Because the ball bearing stainless steel and the rest of the mechanism is made out of brass. The brass is softer, and so there friction, and especially if you're flicking it or rolling off the side of the click mechanism, it can cause the ball bearing to push and deform the side of the track that it's rolling in. So it does require more. For lack of a better word, it requires more of a presence of mind when using it, but it is still a very robust click mechanism, all metal, and really if you treat it properly, and it will last a long time. Also, we really, if you run into an issue with one of the ones you purchased through us, one of the pens, and you purchase it within the last like 6 months, and it's not something that is from misuse, normally if you contact us, we'll replace it without any cost. After that time period, if it's over, 6 months, 9 months, what have you, and you need a replacement, they just thread in, and we sell replacements on our website for $5 a piece. So we feel that that's really one of the better options that's out there, as opposed to potentially making something specific. There are other companies that have made their own click mechanisms at much greater cost, which is why they're far more expensive than the ones that we sell, and the ones that Schmidt makes. So hopefully that answers your question. We really don't feel like it detracts from the pen itself. If used properly, it should last years and years and years, and with the ability to easily remove it and replace it we feel like it's the best option currently to us. So some of the other questions that I have, the next one, I'll just go down the list. I'm not going to kind of pick around. So the next question was, will the Decograph pens ever be made in translucent materials? There's several Decograph specific questions on here. To answer this one, yes, the Decographs will be made in translucent materials. We initially tested the Decograph in translucent materials, and as we have gone along in our prototyping and then just our production, finalizing production on that pen and really proving it out and trying different things to get the right process with the right tools and the right program down on the right machines, we feel like we're not very far off from adding more translucent materials. Our goal is to eventually offer full transparent materials in some way, shape, or form with any of the non-metal pens that we offer. So we are moving in that direction. We're just finalizing ways to make sure that the finished product is quality and meets our specifications. We don't want to run into anything where we're selling or producing a product that has a finish that is not that does not meet our standards and that you would expect to see what we would produce. So we're very intentional about the process. We're going step by step through the process and testing different materials to get the best quality for each material. And that requires us to really adjust the programming and adjust the tooling and how we do things for every single material. So, but yes, we do plan on offering those materials. That kind of leads us to another materials question and a colors question. How do you decide on the materials and colors you use? So when it comes to our metal pens, we started with aluminum, brass, and copper because we've worked with aluminum, brass, and copper in the past. So that kind of just lends itself to our machining. If you work in a specific material, it makes it easier for Bill to kind of translate that material to a pen like what we have, or the cube. And we wanted to do something that we could produce in large quantities that would not that would be in a price point that most people would be comfortable for a greater spectrum of the pen community, which is why we haven't done a lot of stuff in some of the higher end materials as far as metals are concerned. Colors, really, for the metal pens, that really comes down to the anodizer, what they have to offer. We are expanding to several different anodizers. Instead of just using one local to us, we're going to be using some that are out of state that will afford us the option of adding colors that we've either discontinued or that we never were able to carry. So you can expect to see the anodized metal pen color options grow a little bit over the next 3 to 6 months. That's likely around the time frame that we'll be getting some of those in. Really looking forward to that. As far as the materials for the Decograph, it's really just I kind of sat down and looked through what was available to us and purchased different materials and what I saw a lot of people either asking for, or a large draw in colors, or colors that were very popular online. We also did some internal forums with the pen club members where we showed them several different pictures of color, material and color options, and allowed them to vote on different ones, and then ordered some of the top 3 or 4. So it's kind of it's where the non-metal stuff is concerned. It was kind of just me grabbing what was available that looked really good, and then soliciting some feedback from some of the pen club members. It's one of the reasons the pen club kind of have perks like that, where they get a little bit of the say in how we do things if we can allow them to, if we have the ability to do that. Which leads me to a material specific question. Are we going to be offering pens, specifically the Decograph, in ebonite? Right, so it says pens, but the other pens just don't lend themselves to being made in ebonite. Ebonite is a plastic, quote unquote, from the 1800s. Traditional pens, fountain pens, were made out of ebonite. You can still purchase it from Germany, Japan, and India. It's it's processed and made differently. It machines differently. Some people really like it because it has different elements when you hold on, like it warms to the touch. It's a little bit more organic, for lack of a better term, in that it's how it just feels in the hand. It's not as cold as plastic or metal. Modern plastics or metal, like I use cold as a term, like because it does actually warm up in your hand, some of the properties. So we've looked at using it for the Decograph, and we may use it in the future for that pen or any of the other pens that we have down the line, but I'm not 100% sure. It's one of the things that we'll have to test out and prove out in production when we go down that road and potentially branch out into it. So the next question, in designing your pens, how do you test the writability and comfort for different size hands? We kind of design the pen based off of functionality first, and then have different people that we trust write with it. Some of those people are pen club members. Some of those people are product testers that we've had relationships for a long period of time. Mike Dudek of Dudek Modern Goods and the Clicky Post is a person that we frequently ask for feedback on the design itself. Guys in the shop will ask them, hey, how does this feel in your hand? Spouses, girlfriends, what have you. It's one of those things that when we're designing a pen, sometimes it's more like we want it to function this way, and we're constrained by the size that we're really looking at. So it's got to fit between these parameters, and then Dan kind of designs the overall grip section place and how it's going to look. And then, we can only adapt certain manufacturing processes depending on the shape of the grip area, which is why one of the reasons why we don't use knurling in our pens. If you want more on that, head over to the Pen Podcast. We talk about knurling specifically in a couple of different questions in there. So it's kind of just if we can fit movement within the design movement of the writing area, the gripping area within the design and functionality constraints, then we will move it around to get the best feel and look. But otherwise, it's just kind of a process of working with people that we've worked with in the past. When planning a final design, what is your process for testing with different users? I kind of alluded that earlier. We have a group of testers that we've used in the past that we send pens to in whatever form. Once we're at a place where we can say, hey, let's get some feedback on this, and we send them out, and then those users will test it out and send us feedback on the pen itself and give us some idea of what's going on. So there is the ability. We do have a group of people that we for lack of a better word, trust to give us feedback on those particular measures that we're asking for. It's just kind of been a process of over time gaining a relationship with those people, and then we just go back to them because it's really part of the process. They're basically our user group, our test group. There's probably 15 to 20 people in that group that we send out, but they're a relatively diverse group of individuals. So we get a lot of good feedback from all of them as far as their writing preference, their size pen preference, whether they like metal or not. It's kind of a large group of people, a large enough group of people with a diverse enough taste that we can get a good feedback from them. Who primarily takes your product shots? So we have a photographer on staff. Tommy, he does all of our photography, he does all of our videography, all of our social media. He's been with the company for quite some time. and really kind of grown into the position. He used to work in the shop and kind of grew into this position. Um, and it's continued to improve, and it benefits us greatly having somebody on staff that when we need stuff done, he has the equipment and has the skills and the know-how on getting that stuff to us quickly, as opposed to finding somebody else, telling them what we want. It really, with our product, we need that kind of ability to do that internally. And so we mainly use Tommy. We every once in a while we will reach out to some other people. We've worked with some people in the pen community, specifically Ed Jelly in the past, did a video for the Fountain K release that we used because we wanted a specific style and a specific look to it. And so and that was at a time where we weren't doing as much video. We've since grown our video side of it, and we probably would do a lot of that internally now. So it's something that we just do internally because we have the ability to do so. Not a lot of companies necessarily have somebody that is a photographer and has the ability to do what we do on staff, but it's benefited us greatly. So let's go down here. Will you ever make a pencil? So we get that question a lot, and the short answer to that question is yes. We're working on it right now. We hope to have a pencil released in the 2018 calendar year. So it's in the process. It's in the pipe. It's coming. We've heard you, and we've been looking forward to it as well. Can't wait to actually get it into testers' hands. Actually, I can't wait to get it off the machine in the first couple iterations of it so we can mess around with it and really see where we're going with it. So, but we are working on it. Let's see, what else? Would a pocket pen other than a mini version be a product you offer? This is another yes. We are in the process of working on a design for a true pocket style pen, something that's much more functional, more user friendly, more in that it caps really well, it posts really well, but it's a small profile pen. We've never kind of designed that type of pen from the ground up. We adapted the Render K with the Mini, and as we've talked about in the recent clearance video, that's kind of going away. And we are at works on a true pocket style pen. So look for that at some time later in the year. We really are looking forward to proving that out and releasing something that's really a unique offering in that frame. So this is, why did you choose a screw-on cap instead of a cap that snaps on? At the time when we designed our capped pens, specifically the ink and the Render K, threading is much more easy and comes more naturally to machinists. It's presets, it's pulling it in within SolidWorks or your other modeling software. You can really just kind of design it and go. With a snap cap needs to be done right, so that when you push the pen on, it aligns properly, it has a positive stop, it engages with whatever mechanism you're using, whether that's an O-ring or whether that's friction. There's no movement of the cap and the barrel, as it doesn't allow you to potentially cap it at an angle where it would get locked in place. It looks correct. And when we set out to make capped pens, we didn't necessarily have the ability to do all that. We've grown to the point where we're comfortable with that. And in fact, the next pen we will release this year, the reactor pen, is actually a snap cap pen. So you will see that technology in one of our pens in the next metal pen that's a capped pen. So, and then we are looking at ways to adapt that technology to some of the other to future pen releases as well. So we will have at least 2 different snap cap pens are in the works of being designed. One will definitely be released this year. So we've grown to the ability to do that. We just didn't have it initially, or we just didn't feel comfortable enough. And we've basically improved to the point where we now are totally confident in the process. We've proved it out in the reactor, and it works well and just functions absolutely fantastically. We have a question on here: are we moving away from classic metal pens to signature models? That is a no. The next entire line of writing instruments that we release, the reactor line, is all going to be in aluminum, at least initially. So we have not abandoned metal. We will not abandon metal. We do have plans to grow the signature line, which will have non-metal, which are primarily non-metal elements in those. While they do have some metal with them, they're mostly made out of plastics or other similar resins. That signature line will encompass those pens that are made out of non-metal materials, but we are definitely not going away from metal. It's not our desire to do that. So I'm going to wrap up with kind of a fun question. There's some more questions on here, but we're going to wrap this Q&A up, and we can get to some of the other ones later. A fun question for me anyway. I actually get this question quite frequently. Where does Paul get his shirts? I get my shirts. I'm kind of like a shirt fiend. I like a good shirt, especially if it's a tri-blend shirt. It's comfortable. It's got some cool graphics on it, some cool designs. So I will, and with my military experience, I wear a lot of military clothing company shirts. So I was in the Army for 7 years, and I'm kind of drawn to either tongue-in-cheek military like logos or sayings that other members of the military will understand. But I purchase shirts primarily from Grunt Style, Ranger Up, Victor Wrench, Inkfidel, Black Rifle Coffee Company. Black Rifle Coffee actually has one of their employees and I served in the military at the same time. We're deployed at the same time on the same FOB in Iraq. So Tyler Adams and I have like a close connection. He's a customer of ours as well as working for Black Rifle. I dig their coffee, and they make really cool shirts. This shirt is one of our shirt designs. It's available on our Threadless store. But I also wear Story Supply Company shirts and Rickshaw shirts, other companies that we've done collabs with. I wear some shirts that were with the flood in South Carolina a couple years ago. I purchased some shirts that Matthew Morse did the artwork for, and he donated the money from the selling the shirts to that cause. I purchased those shirts. I basically, like, if we work with a company or we are, have a relationship with a company or want to have a relationship with a company, or somebody sends me a shirt, I'll probably wear it. So if you have some cool shirts, extra large, I'm right here. I'll pimp it for you. So that's it this time, guys. I really had fun doing this Q&A. Hopefully you guys got some out of it. And if you have questions or comments, hit us up down below. Fill out the form, the Q&A form, and you may see your question answered sometime down the road. Talk to you later.